So, before this video even begins, I'm not sure what this video is going to be about. Is this going to be a video essay, a breakdown of a series and its components? I couldn't tell you. All I know is that at the time that I'm writing this, July 18th, 2025, I am feeling incredibly low. So much so that I kind of want to throw away all the baggage and just float by. Why do I feel like this? Well, where to even begin? There's a wide variety of reasons that I don't think are worth getting into for the sake of not ruining my CTR on this video. But instead, I have a question for you guys. When you're feeling upset or maybe sad, do you have a certain author that you return to? Maybe to feel a sense of acceptance or to reground you? Well, I do. Whenever I feel like this, I often return to one of my favorite mangaka, Nagata Kabi, who I am strangely similar to. And I find myself rereading everything. My lesbian experience with loneliness, my twisted eating disorder, my alcoholic escape from reality, my wandering warrior existence, you name it. But one that always ends up captivating me and allows me to find it in myself to continue through everything for even one more day is My Pancreas Broke, But My Life Got Better. In this entry, Nagata Kabi explores some very deep feelings, mostly rooted in her on and off addiction to alcohol and its consequences. In today's video, I'm going to be exploring this piece while also explaining to you guys what this manga means to me. If you enjoy this video, or if you relate to either me or this story, please be sure to subscribe. Leaving a like would also help a lot. It gives me the confidence to create more videos like this in the future. But with that said, let's begin. In the first chapter, or rather the prologue before the manga even begins, Nagata Kabi is informed that she has a condition called pancreatitis, which is the inflammation of the pancreas, which has many causes, but is most commonly seen from high alcohol use, something that Nagata Kabi had been struggling with. In order to treat Nagata Kabi's condition, she'd have to be admitted into a hospital for an extended amount of time. But the anxiety from being at the hospital and having to inform her parents about her condition at such a crucial time during her life was too much. So when the opportunity was presented, she ran away. This is something that you see a lot of in Nagata Kabi's works, that is not only very human, but what I feel is very reflective of myself. When things don't work out for me, after so long, all I think about is running away, quitting, leaving all of it behind. But when I actually do that and I'm 2 to 3 days behind on videos and have to cram it all into one night, I'm left thinking, what am I even doing? Nagata Kabi is not a character, she is a person, and like most of, if not all of us, she has her own set of real-life problems and circumstances. Nagata Kabi fears having to speak up. Nagata Kabi fears having to take accountability for her actions. That doesn't make her weak, nor does that make her a bad person. It humanizes Nagata Kabi in a way that a lot of authors lack. And I think that it's for this reason I can feel something when I'm reading something by Nagata Kabi. After running away from the hospital, but still calling to leave a message, she is allowed to be an outpatient, but it is instructed that she cannot drink a single drop of alcohol. And while looking up at the ceiling, lost in thought, we're taking a step back into Nagata Kabi's mind, before the alcohol became a prominent piece of her life. There was a time where Nagata Kabi was completely alcohol-free. She didn't drink and she lived a fairly modest life. But after her story, My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, caught the world by storm, the status that came with it allowed her to live a little differently. Since she now acknowledged herself as an adult that had left some form of impact on the world and was getting attention, she allowed herself to drink, which was something that she hadn't permitted herself to do before. And when she drank, she felt all the guilt in her life slip away. The guilt of making her mother cry with her most popular piece that went into detail about her pain and her internal struggles. The guilt of having to be productive as a now fairly established mangaka. This would all eventually spiral into a loop where drinking would become Nagata's freedom from everything. Again, it's kind of sickening how much I see myself in this piece. While I don't engage in alcohol as a means of freeing myself from the ties I have, I do engage in other things as a form of escapism. I fall into mindsets where I don't want to do certain things. I don't want to upload anymore. I don't like any of my videos. I don't want to keep trying. And that eventually spirals until it reaches a point where it becomes a loop. After one upload fails, I take some days off. after another upload fails, I take even more days off. A while ago, it reached a point where I hadn't even uploaded for about a month or longer. It just goes to show that when you are down, when you are overcome by everything in your life and just want something, anything to distract you, something to avert your eyes from the reality of the world, even the most minor of things can become a dangerous cycle. Whether that's alcohol, whether that's escapism, whether that's procrastination, whatever it is. Nagata Kabi's alcohol addiction gradually got worse, until it reached the point where she had to be admitted into a hospital once again. But the things in the real world that she could no longer run away from, such as communication, people, all of it scared her, resulting in her running away once more and being switched to a women's only hospital. This hospital was much more accepting of the patient's request, which actually allowed for some good healing time for Nagata Kabi. But after leaving the hospital and getting her hands on some more alcohol, the loop would once again repeat. But Nagata Kabi wouldn't be as lucky as her other times. This time, she'd not only develop fatty liver, also known as alcoholic fatty liver disease, but would also develop pancreatitis, both of these conditions being the product of her heavy and prolonged drinking. These two conditions combined would not only restrict what Nagata Kabi could consume, but also would result in her being connected to an IV drip 24/7, which I can imagine being quite uncomfortable. But despite everything, Nagata Kabi would make a lucky recovery about 20 days in and be allowed to return home. But of course, she was ordered to stay away from drinking, along with restrictions being put on some foods that she can and cannot consume. In the start, Nagata Kabi would heed this warning, finding alternatives for alcohol, along with fried foods that she'd been told to stay away from. But about a month in, she had reached her breaking point. The guilt that she had been formerly chasing away through the use of alcohol hit her all at once, and the only way that she knew how to accept it was through alcohol. Nagata Kabi was, once again, back to drinking an unhealthy amount of alcohol. But surprisingly, nothing happened regarding the pancreatitis. But on her own accord, she decided to get specialized treatment for her addiction. At the addiction clinic Nagata Kabi went to, it was suggested for her to take place in a group meeting with people who had already conquered their alcohol addictions. But it would be an hour wait until that meeting actually began. That hour's wait would gradually turn into hell for Nagata. She couldn't stand the voices clouding her ears. She couldn't stand being surrounded by all these people with their own motives and circumstances and stories and ideas. It was stressful. So Nagata Kabi chooses the easy way out once more and runs away. This part especially makes me feel as though I can really relate to Nagata Kabi. I've been pretty transparent with my issues I had in school on this channel. I didn't really fit into the school environment. I was on the more quiet side. I preferred not to talk to people. That was just how I felt. That's just how I am as a person. But I will never forget the sound of all the voices blending together, whether that was in the classrooms or the cafeteria, talking about things that I could care less about, things that in the grand scheme of things held no real weight. All of it stressed me out so bad. That stuff made me nervous. I couldn't stand the voices of people blending together. When you are forced to be in an environment like that, the only thing you want to do is escape and go back home where it's nice and quiet and comfortable, which we see Nagata Kabi do. When she returned home, she'd fall back into the same loop of using alcohol as a means for escape, then eventually would have another pancreatitis incident and be hospitalized again. But unlike the prior hospital, this one wasn't as lenient. She couldn't go on walks, couldn't go to the store, any of it. Nagata Kabi was essentially surrounded by her own thoughts, along with the noises from other patients like herself. Not to mention that, again, she had an IV drip attached to her 24/7, which restricted her movement, making it so that she was borderline stuck in place all the time. Not being able to eat, not being able to move freely, not being able to speak with anyone besides her mother, Nagata Kabi felt the need to run away. But what's important here is that she didn't immediately run away this time. She tried. She really did. But in the end, what mattered more to her was her freedom, her mental health. So once again, she ran away. The act of running away in the context of this manga becomes a much bigger symbol. It represents Nagata Kabi's problem in its full entirety. The roots of this problem, the alcohol addiction, stemmed from a desire to run away from everything. The fact that we still see running so often in this manga is a reminder that the issue plaguing Nagata Kabi's life hasn't been triumphed over. It is still holding her hostage. As long as Nagata Kabi is willing to run away, she will continue falling into loops of using alcohol as a safety net. But unlike the previous times, per her father's request, she sent a note to the hospital apologizing and was permitted to be an outpatient. Except this time, Nagata Kabi hadn't fallen back on drinking. Even if subconsciously, she was straying away from it. I think that the lack of emphasis on drinking in the later chapters reflects that idea perfectly. But the highlight of this manga, which will always make me tear up no matter what, is the conversation that Nagata Kabi has with her father. Nagata's father was there for her and asked her to talk about some of the stuff that she'd gone through, believing that it'd make her feel better. And after speaking so much that she forgot the contents of her own words, her father would dispel words that would not only change the trajectory of Nagata's life, but also the direction of this entire manga. Rather than giving some lackluster advice or scrutinizing her, telling her that everything is her fault and that it's time to own up to accountability, he instead tells his daughter, a treasure. I think you're a real treasure. These words, although short, contain an immense amount of love. He isn't trying to make Nagata Kabi feel guilty. He isn't trying to ground her in the reality of her situation. He is telling his daughter, from the bottom of his heart, the words that she had likely forgotten, reminding her that through everything, she is loved. She has a support pillar that sees her for her. Those words from her father, in tandem with her mother's attempts to curate a personalized diet to counter the pancreatitis, gave Nagata Kabi a reminder at something that maybe she'd lost, or maybe something that she had forgotten. It gave her a foothold that she previously believed could only be acquired through alcohol. It reminded her that her existence is important, that she is loved, that she doesn't have to rely on some substance to clear her mind of her guilt. And in the final chapter, Nagata Kabi wraps up everything in the best way possible. She doesn't miraculously recover because she found motivation. The process is difficult and everything but clean. She still yearns for drinks at times, and even worries that she could slip back into that addiction at any given moment. But the most important part of the conclusion is the self-growth that Nagata Kabi experiences. She realizes that while being treated as an adult may have been the start of her addiction, the roots actually went much deeper than that, and instead was potentially a product of her fear of communication and people. The cause had been something internal that had been there for a long time, that emerged under the pretense of that ascension into adulthood. In order to truly get over her addiction and make sure that it never comes back, she would have to confront the deepest parts of herself. The parts of herself that fear communication. The parts of herself that fear people. The final chapter is an eye-opening moment for not only the audience, but I'd imagine even Nagata Kabi herself. There's so much here regarding her addiction that before, she hadn't even begun to formulate into words. But now she's tying it all back into the pandemic, and how often she had to fulfill promises, which would inadvertently lead to even more drinking. The conclusion isn't written by someone who gave up. It was written by someone who overcame that addiction, and proved that despite all the running, the relapsing, Nagata Kabi was stronger than that. That Nagata Kabi wasn't as hopeless as she thought. Though Nagata Kabi has a tendency to be quite self-deprecating towards herself, I think she's a lot stronger than she gives herself credit for. There are a lot of people in this world who, rather than taking the time to learn about themselves and make it somewhere, would rather just quit. There are a lot of people in this world who find solace in the act of accepting their addiction and choosing not to face it head on. By no means is Nagata Kabi weak. Oftentimes I think that I am too hard on myself. I fail once at something, and in the moment, I believe that's the end of the road no matter what it is. A video underperformed, that's the end of Wadasha, everyone hates me now. This video didn't get X amount of likes, I'm falling off. When in reality, that just isn't the case. Nagata Kabi proved that right here. Failing is okay. You can fail once, you can fail twice, or you can fail over and over. But eventually, as long as you put forth at least an ounce of effort, you will make it somewhere. I have not reached that point yet. I think that as I'm writing this, I'm still failing. I still haven't found my true foothold, but have I given up? Absolutely not. And I think that's what matters when talking about things like this. Each day I will still continue to try, even harder than the last. And I think that in time, I will not only learn to be a little more lenient with myself, but I will also find my foothold and grow in ways that I can't even begin to formulate. That is my hope and my pride for the future. Thank you all so much for watching. I know that this video was a little bit different, and that's because when I was writing this, rather than revising to oblivion, I kind of let my feelings just run wild. Everything you see here is how I really feel without the filters from the revisions and this and that and that. If you guys haven't already, please be sure to subscribe, especially if you want to see more from me, more videos like this. It would really mean the world. I also have a Ko-fi and a Discord in the description if you guys want to join those or support me. And with all that said, everyone, take care.